Greetings, YouTube. You know, every week I do a certain amount of videos, usually below 5, maybe once every couple days on a forum post in the forums. Normally it's about a bug or maybe a idea for a new champion or mechanics or, something relatively small in stature and importance. But that is not the case with this forum post. This forum post is a letter to Kabam representing what is claiming to be, and I think I have every right to believe, a significant number of Alliance families in the game. And I've got to tell you, I haven't done a video about this because, well, honestly, it's just, sometimes it's depressing to talk about people leaving the game, and also, I don't want to over dramatize the situation or make it seem like I'm feeding the people who just perceive my channel as negative. So I don't make a video. But then a forum post comes along like this, and I think, this is a really good opportunity to discuss it. Because I have heard of several people who have walked away from their accounts, especially in the past 6 months. So, with that being said, let's read this post about the letter to Kabam regarding the state of the game by Solid Finality. Dear Kabam, we represent a significant number of Alliance families in the game, and our players are disappointed in you. They're disappointed in the game's state and the lack of communication these last couple of weeks. The recent bug compensation was appreciated, so, they are acknowledging a positive. But it is only a temporary relief for a much larger problem. The compensation drops had helped in Alliance Quest, as have the Alliance War ones. The Alliance Quest compensation needs to be restored until the game is playable. The strict adherence to the Summer of Pain schedule was damaging to morale as people had to spend additional resources due to bugs. It's not an ethical expectation you have set for the player base. Our players are frankly sick of offers being pushed at them while the game is borderline unplayable. Players are quitting in droves, and recruiting is becoming extremely difficult with such a frustrating game state. We have to stop the bleeding. We are coming to you in hopes of working together to turn morale around throughout the community. We need an accurate timeline for the resolution of these bugs. By the way, I'm sure they wish they could give us one, but I feel like they've thrown everything and the kitchen sink at it. And honestly, I feel like behind the scenes they're probably panicking because they thought it would be fixed by now. They talked about hot fixes going out that would fix the bugs a month ago. So, in Kabam's defense, and I know that statement makes some people uncomfortable every time I utter it, I think they are trying to help. I think it's in their best interest to have a game that works, despite the conspiracy theories out there that continue to pop up on videos like this on my channel, that people think Kabam is the one behind the bugs because they want people to have to spend more units. It is a maybe short-term gain for them, but a long-term loss in morale and player base if the game is broken. It makes no financial sense for the health of their bottom line long-term to sabotage their own game. We need more frequent and more transparent dialogue about this resolution. We understand that in troubleshooting this, that unintended interactions may occur further delaying the fix, but we need that communicated. That we can point out to our players and show them that the game is not dying. We need consistent compensation so players can try to enjoy the game that is left for them to play. We also ask that you reconsider your sales model while the game is in such a broken state. That's not going to happen. It's hard to justify investing money into a broken game. That's the hard truth that many players are seeing. I call this the Marvel Casino of Champions for a reason. The casino is going to leave their lights on during a pandemic, during flooding, during an economic collapse. And I have to say, yes, the game is certainly broken in some ways, but it's not so broken that you can't play any of it, right? I feel like if you read this post, you would walk away thinking that, you can't do any fights in any part of the content. And for most people, I just think that's not the case. Now, do they have a point that it's broken? Sure. But I do think that most content works fairly well most of the time. which is sort of like saying my car works fairly well most of the time, which is all good and well until you count on it to get you from point A to point B, and it breaks down. And then it costs you more money in repairs, right? We want to keep our players engaged, but we need you to meet us halfway. The signers of this letter represent approximately 140 alliances. That's a lot. Totaling approximately 4,200 players of various segments of the game, from top 20 Alliance Quest down to map 4. From Masters level down to optional war, we have whales and free-to-play, and every player budget in between. These bugs affect all of them and more. Please work with us to keep the community and the game healthy. Sincerely, and you can see a ton of people. Now, one of the points about this post that I definitely agree with is the need to restore Alliance Quest compensation from time to time. It's weird that they said we're done doing that, and yet Alliance Quest is still broken, especially a combination of the horror stories I hear regarding lag in boss fights. But also, my game crashes right as Alliance Quest fights start, I should say. Maybe 3 or 4 times a week. Now I do map 5, so I lose my health and I jump back in begrudgingly, but for those of you in map 6 and especially map 7, that could be the difference between whether or not you have to spend units. So I want to empathize with that. I also think it's important to show all the names on this list, which is a lot. It also can be easy to forget just how many people play this game every day, right? Now let's see some of the feedback. I ain't reading all that. I'm happy for you, though, or sorry that happened. Interesting. Get good. That's kind of funny, because that's usually what Kabam says, right? Oh, here we go. Kabam Mike. I'm sorry to hear. Oh, ooh. Oh no. No. This is relationship 101, not to do. If you say, I'm sorry that you think, or I'm sorry that you feel, that is not an apology. That's throwing gasoline on the fire. That is not acknowledging the feelings of your player base. That's laughing at them. And Kabam Mike has to win the award every year for the most passive-aggressive sounding posts. He could write a whole book on it. So when he says, I'm sorry to hear that you think, I throw up in my mouth just hearing those words. We have not been communicating with you all throughout this. I feel that we are pretty open and honest when we made this post here. Also, that's saying, I feel that you are wrong. Again, not what you want to say to your player base. Granted, there hasn't been much communication since then because we haven't had any new information to share. As we said in this post, making those improvements will be a lengthy process where we will be overhauling a large part of the game to work with this engine update. If I had a timeline for these fixes, I would be singing it from the rooftops. See, that just sounds... One, it sounds like Kabam Mike is Mary Poppins, but two, that just sounds condescending, right? It sounds passive-aggressive and petty and all the things that you don't want to say in a public forum when your player base is upset. Even if you think you have a point, there's just a right and wrong way to go about it, and Kabam Mike often chooses the wrong path. What you're asking for us to share information that we do not have, and that's just called lying and doesn't help anyone. Okay, so this whole post should be in like a textbook of what not to do when responding to someone, right? Like, case in point, don't fake apologize and discount their feelings. Don't belittle them, and definitely don't call them liars. I don't think that's rocket science. I think that's just common sense about human empathy. Now, one thing I don't like about this petition, well, I think you already named a few things you don't like, is that it makes it seem like players of all segments are affected, but somehow not us. Okay, step 5 in what not to do, victim shaming because you make yourself into said victim. Ooh. Nobody is more affected by this issue than we are, and nobody is more disturbed and spending more time fixing it than our engineers are. We all want the same thing here, and that's a game that functions reliably. Now, I do think that's the case, again, because that's the best for their bottom line. Why would you want to put out a fraudulent product for multiple months? We'll continue conversations with the team on the topic of compensation and content rollout, but in the meantime, the show must go on. Now, it definitely makes it sound like a circus. I'm also planning more communications that you can expect in the next week. Oh, good. More passive-aggressive, victim-blaming, victim-shaming, lying. Oh, my gosh. Literally, you could make a checklist of all the things you should not do when focusing on a situation in a public relations setting. Like, I took a master's level class in public relations, and this post could literally be in the textbook that we all had to buy on what not to do when diffusing a situation. This is just pouring gasoline on all of it. Okay, but in the meantime, the show must go on. I'm also planning more communications that you can expect the next week or two when we have more information from our partners. Oh, you've got multiple partners. Maybe you are a polygamist. Let's be realistic. Kabam's not going to suddenly stop offering things, and they've offered some really pro player moves. My favorite being the Wednesday $10 for Cavalier Nexus What If crystals. I think the game, like if you were to look at a percentage for most people, it's probably like 80 to 90%, but that 20 or 10 to 20% is a big deal, especially when you're fighting a Alliance War or Alliance Quest boss or just simply fighting bosses in general. I do think one thing Kabam has never done and needs to do, but again, I don't want to hold my breath on this, is in part of the compensation to give units. They're just against it. Instead of giving items, because as great as revives or potions are, you know how many people, they just immediately go into their overflow and then you have to find a reason to spend them for 2 weeks? Give them the unit equivalent of those things. If they need to buy potions, they've got the units. But if they don't need to buy the potions and revives, they can use the units on something else. Maybe it's Cavalier crystals. Maybe it's just hoarding units in general to save up for things like Cyber Weekend. I don't know what they're doing with their units, but give them the option. So instead of giving somebody 1,500 units worth of items, just give them 1,500 units. I get that the counter argument is, well, you can't buy level 3 revives or, level whatever health potions. That's true. But oftentimes you can buy level 2 revives, and that's what they give us. In general, I understood where this post was coming from, but I was also trying to play devil's advocate a little bit on both sides, and then Kabam Mike just lit the entire thing on fire and made it 1,000 times worse. With one of the worst responses I have ever seen, not just in this community, but literally any textbook focus group example of how to handle a situation. So, I know this is a much longer video than usual, but there was a lot to cover, and I still feel like I could speak another 10 minutes on this, but I don't like videos on my channel that last really a lot of times over 5 minutes, but especially over 10 minutes, and this is almost 14 minutes. So we're going to cut this off here and just use the comment section of this video as further discussion because unlike this forum post, Kabam can't close the comment section.